Hi friends, it's Walter Zemrock with the Love from Lizi design team, here with a video featuring 5 designs that I made with the September 2025 Garden Grace kit. This kit is so gorgeous and is full of so many great elements. Come create with me as I jump in and start on my designs. For this card, I'll be using a Craft A2 card base, a card panel that is 4 inches by 5.25 inches, a piece of the brushed gold metallic, a piece of ephemera, some of the beautiful green pull-offs, the stamp set, the trellis die, as well as some of the dried flowers. I begin by stamping my sentiment onto the piece of ephemera with some gold metallic pigment ink. And I then move on to die cutting the trellis die out of the brushed gold cardstock. Next, I adhere down my card panel onto the card base with double-sided adhesive tape. And then take one of the green peel-offs, align it between the card panel and the edge of the card, and when happy with the length, trim it, and then I repeat the same on the other 3 sides of the card. With that in place, I put some glue onto the back of the brushed gold trellis and then adhere it down onto my card base. I then take the wire of the beaded berry ephemera and twist it around the baby's breath. This keeps them together as one unit for when I adhere it down onto the card base. I adhere the floral down and then adhere down one of the white rose ribbons. I put some double-sided foam tape onto the back of my piece of ephemera and adhere it down onto the card. And just like that, the first card is complete. Isn't it pretty? This second design is a lot of fun, and it was my first time creating one. I start with an A2 card base made of the dark green cardstock, and then adhere down with double-sided tape a piece of the patterned paper that is cut to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. I want to cut an oval out of the front panel of the card, so I use some low-tack tape to put my oval die in place, and then run it through my die cut machine. While I have my die cut machine handy, I use the flower geo background die and a piece of gold cardstock to cut out a nice background piece. And now that the pieces are cut out, I can start to assemble everything that I need to get the card going. I lightly ink blend some walnut stain distress ink onto a 4-inch by 5.25-inch white card panel, just to distress it and give it a little bit of a vintage vibe. I took a 2-inch by 4.25-inch piece of the dark green cardstock and scored it at every 1/2 inch. I then folded it and burnished it so that it created an accordion-like device. put some glue onto the back of it, and then adhered it down to the inside panel of the card. I then put some double-sided tape onto the back of the ink blended white panel and adhered it down so that it was covering that top part of the accordion base. And then put some glue onto the back of the gold die cut piece and adhered it down into the center of my white card panel. The inside of my card was now constructed, so I ran some double-sided tape over the other end of the accordion piece, put some craft glue onto it as well, and then gently placed the front panel of the card down over the top of it so that it became an easel-like structure. I assembled a small bunch of the dried floral elements, put some craft glue onto the back, and then gently laid it onto the gold die cut in the background. Took some of the green peel-offs and put one down one side of the card panel, cut it to size, and then repeated that and did the same for the other three sides. Some double-sided foam tape strips were added to the back of a piece of butterfly ephemera, and I then went ahead and added that onto the front of the card. I stamped my sentiment onto a piece of the patterned cardstock and then trimmed it down to size. I then put some double-sided foam tape onto the back of it, added some craft glue, a pretty good amount, onto the stems of the dried flowers, and then put the sentiment strip into place. And the shadow box easel card is complete. I really like the way it turned out. A gold foiled panel is the star of card number 3. I took one of the foilable panels, put a piece of the gold foil onto it, and then ran it through my fuse machine. I anxiously waited for it to come out the other side so that I could see how it was going to look. I'm excited because I love a good foiled panel, especially if it's gold foiled. Even though it was hot to touch, I couldn't wait. I took the panel out and removed the leftover foil, which I put to the side so I could use it in my next project. And the result is stunning. So I was continuing on with my card and realized once I completed it that I had forgotten to hit record. And so, the making of this, you saw the most important part, which was really the foiling. And so that part you saw. And what I did after the foiling is I took a gold Nouveau shimmer pen, went around the edge of the, I cut this out with an oval die, went around the edge of that with this pen, and also went around the outside edge with this pen. I also took a gold gel pen and just traced along the inside of where that green panel meets the card base. to put a little bit of a very light gold accent there. After that was done, you may recall that I had used this die in the first card, and there were a bunch of these petals that were left over. I saved them. And so I simply glued 3 coming in from each of those corners. 3 was enough. I could have completed the whole thing, but since it's covered, there was really no need to. So I glued 3 coming out of each of the 4 corners. I then put my oval on some double-sided foam tape, put that down, and then I took 3 of the insides of some of the butterflies and put 3 on there. And that completes this card. My fourth project is going to use that leftover remnant of the foil from the previous one. So I put some foiling paste down onto a black oval, and I let the paste dry. You can either speed it up with a hairdryer or just let it naturally dry. I put the foil remnant on it and ran it through my fuse, and you can see how pretty this turned out. In order to tone down the overall brightness, I blended a little bit of vintage photo distress ink over the panel to kind of dull it down a bit. I then took some vintage patina, oxide ink, and a baby wipe and gently tapped it over the front of the panel to add a little bit of an aged patina to the overall aesthetic of the oval. This is a really easy way to add some additional vintage detail, and it never fails. I created an A2 card base and covered it with an A2 sized piece of patterned paper, put some double-sided adhesive onto the back of the oval, and set it into place on my card. I stamped a sentiment onto a white strip of cardstock, used my scissors to trim it to size, and distressed it with a little bit of the distress ink. I then ran a gold metallic marker around the outside edges of the sentiment strip and adhered it to the base with some double-sided foam tape strips. I then added just a few embellishments that were pretty simple to the front of the card with some craft glue. And the vintage gold paneled card was complete. This last design is my favorite because it allowed me to do some coloring. Instead of foiling the panel, I knew I wanted to use alcohol markers to color it in. Before coloring, I took a piece of the pink glitter cardstock and the herringbone cover die and decided to make a frame for the card. To create the frame, I used my scissors to snip around the inside edges of the panel, which removed those inside pieces. I'm going to use 3 shades of pink to color my florals. I start by taking my darkest shade and putting it into the areas of shading and running it along the bottom inside of each of the petals. This way, when I take my next color, I'll be able to blend that upwards to create the nicely blended flower petals. I'm only going to show the coloring of one of the florals, just for the sake of time. Once I'm done adding my dark to each of the florals, I take the next color of pink and use the brush tip and make some upward sweeping movements from the bottom of each petal, right where that dark is, and just moving that upwards. And that blends the dark with this lighter shade of pink, and it starts to move the color further up each of the petals. I go around the flowers and do this on each of the petals. It takes a little time, but it's definitely worth it because the result is going to be really beautiful. I keep repeating this until each of the petals are completely colored in. I then take my lightest shade of pink and blend it all over the entire floral from the bottom of each petal to the top. This just simply blends both of those previous shades together, and this is what really makes the magic happen as all of the inks are blended together. I move on to my stem and leaves, and I start with a darker green and go ahead and add in the areas where I want the darker green to be prevalent. This is generally in the veins of the leaves and in the parts where there would be shadows. I move on to my next shade of green and go ahead and color in the remaining parts of the leaves and the stem. Make sure that you take some care to go over each of those dark areas to help with getting it blended. And I finish them off by going over all of the leaves and stems with a much lighter shade of green that will finish the blending. I use a darker shade of yellow to color in the center of my flower. This final step is what is really going to make your floral pop. Take a white gel pen and go around the top of each of the petals, and as soon as you're done drawing a line around the top, use your finger and blend it downwards. This will add an amazing amount of detail to each of your petals and is going to add an amount of realism. Promise you that this is such a great step of detail and you won't regret doing it. Now that I'm done coloring, I take a very light pink ink and ink blend just around the area of the floral. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be in a perfect shape either. It's just to add in a little bit of shading and light into the center of the panel. And it really helps to draw attention to that floral area. I add craft glue to the back of my pink glitter frame and adhere the frame down over the floral. It's not going to be a perfect fit, and that's okay. I use my scissors to go ahead and trim away any of the excess white cardstock that is sticking out from the frame. I then adhere that card panel down to a light pink A2 card base using double-sided adhesive tape. I then put 3 dots of glue down onto the card panel and take 3 of the beautiful pink flower ephemera and adhere them down onto the card. and this beautiful card is complete. To recap the cards we made in this video, we have the wedding card that is kind of an unusual design. It's not what you would normally expect, but really when you take a look at the glimmer of those stones combined with the natural elements of the baby's breath, the little white rose against that white and gold embossed paper, it's really, really pretty. We then have this what I'm calling a shadow box easel card. It will fold up, and it also will stand up, and it's a birthday card, although you could use any of the sentiments within it. It has a lot of natural elements to it, nature coming from the paper, the butterfly, and these beautiful dried flowers. I chose this particular blossom, glued it right into this bunch. It fit in there just perfectly. Put some baby's breath behind it, glued that all down onto a background that was made with that floral background die, cut out of the very light gold paper against the white that we had inked up and distressed. It's really pretty, and put a panel on the back and you have plenty of room for your sentiment. It's a really great design. Here, I really on this card wanted to focus on the foil, and so I foiled this panel, cut it out with a stacking oval die. Got a little bit of light glue left residue on there from that low tack tape. Get rid of that. Ran the gold around it, mounted it onto a card base that had the that lightish yellow color of paper, that pale yellow with a green panel. And then I used some of the leftovers, the remnants of this die, and thought it would be fun to incorporate those into the design and have them coming up from each of the angles. And so that worked out perfectly. I then used the reverse of the foil to go ahead and foil it, put it onto a black oval. And I did that using the foil paste, and then put it through my my foiling machine, mounted it onto a card with the background from this really pretty paper, and put in a sentiment. And it's really, it's I think a great masculine card. And then finally, I really, really enjoyed this card. I really enjoyed making it. Instead of foiling this particular image, I went ahead and colored it with alcohol markers and put it into a really sparkly frame, added on some of these beautiful little pink flowers from the kit, and added a sentiment, "If flowers were friends, I'd pick you." Really, really pretty card and design. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And please also follow me across social media. You can find me on Facebook as Walter Zemrock. You can find me on Instagram as zemstones.walter. zemstones.by.walter. And you'll find me on YouTube using the same handle. So I'll be working on my next set of cards for this kit. I'll be sharing that video soon, and I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, be well.